Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of The Placement Edge. I'm your host, Rahul Bedi, and with me today, I've got Carol Ann Wentworth. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, Raul. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I would love for our listeners just to get a bit of background on your story. You've got an amazing story, and I'd love to share that with the world, starting from where you started off to your book where you've got the poster behind you, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I have had a blessed career. I am very grateful. I always like to share with people early on in my early 20s. I knew I really enjoyed connecting people. And at that time, um, I didn't know the word recruiter, right? But I was the go-to person, your friend that knew oh, you got to go there to get your hair done, or you got to get that pizza because those people are the nicest. And so I actually, in my young 20s, had attended a seminar in Minnesota, and it was for a health and fitness company at the time, Shockley Vitamins. And so in Minnesota during the winters, you went to seminars. It's just what you did because other than being in your office or something, to get to go out was wonderful. And I happened to go on this one day, Saturday, and there was a gentleman named Bob Holker, and he was the number one person in the world in the Shockley Vitamin Company. And I sat right in the front row, and there with him was, at the time, Tony Robbins, who was just up and coming, and there were Harvey McKay and Les Brown. There was a couple other phenomenal speakers. And I just remember thinking, I've got to meet that guy. I just have to meet Bob because I use the products. I want to say thank you for what you do. So I waited about an hour and I got his book and we talked for a few minutes. I could just feel that there was this good connection there with him. 6 months later, he actually called me. And, you have to understand, this is the number one person in the world that back in those days, this was in the 80s, he was doing probably making 100,000, 150,000 a month in the Shackley business. And he was the guy globally. And so I went out to his home and he interviewed me and asked me if I'd like to be his executive assistant. And I was all of 21. And I thought, oh my gosh, what an honor. And so I began 3 of the most phenomenal years of my life, hands-on training, watching a master coordinated. He was actually, he was the master in this business, how he recruited, how he communicated with people. I was the one that got to carry his bags to the seminars and then meet all these other phenomenal people and spend time. And so he would always tell me, Carol Ann, you're a people person. He said, you've got this. And so when I left that particular position and I had married a gentleman and moved to Wisconsin, I had actually, while I was at Bob's, I had been a talent in Minnesota doing TV commercials and print work. And when I moved to Wisconsin, I kept seeing these great faces and I would send them to my agent. And this takes me now to the next level of my career, which was launching an international modeling and talent agency at the age of 26. And that piece, Raul, was so important because what I learned from my work with Bob Holker really taught me that your mindset and your mindset growth, there is not anything you really cannot accomplish and achieve. Now, again, there's a process to it and there's a commitment to it, but I just knew in my heart I could do a wonderful business, like I had no doubt. And so when I launched that, I set a goal and I wanted to work with the number one person in the world. And that happened to be Eileen Ford out of New York City at that time. And there's something about a 6-month window for me because 6 months after I opened, there was a Midwest model search. And it was 5 states, 500 girls, 5 finalists, and 3 of them came from my agency. And the girl who won was my girl, Jenny. And we were all on TV with Eileen Ford. We went up to Minneapolis and And I got to spend time in the green room with her, and she just handed me her card and she said, Carol Ann, I want to see every person you think that would fit the Ford models, because obviously three of your girls were perfect. And so that began a 10-year relationship with her where I recruited talent from the Midwest, and together we placed them all over the world, Raul, in the Milan
Wow.
Couture shows, in Germany, on print work in Japan. She mentored me. It really was such an honor. So yeah, that's how really being recruiting to me, it's about relationship building. And you
Yeah.
know that you and I spoke about that. And so I don't ever look at anyone as a number. I don't look at if they're the perfect fit. I really look at the whole package. And at that time, I've since been told I was out ahead of it. I just simply did what I loved. And I'm still doing it today, 40 years later, and I love it.
Amazing. Tell us about your book and in like what I'm interested in is maybe the lead up to it or the genesis of it before we get into it.
Okay. So fast forward ahead, after I left the Midwest, I came out to California and
Yeah.
landed first in LA. And I was going to, and prior to that, I had moved from Wisconsin back to Minnesota, worked at a top executive search firm, a gentleman that taught me executive search retained. And
Mm.
then met a gentleman in California that happened to be a Midwest boy. And he said if he ever married again, he wanted a Midwest girl. He recruited me to California. And this is an important piece of the story. Anyone that's listening about career transition or how do you build your career or how things show up, Eric, my husband, said to take some time off. He goes, you've worked, since you've been 14, take a little break here. And so I did for like 3 months, and I visited all the chambers of commerce in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. And there were 13 of them. And while this is important, is again, it's about getting out, meeting people. It's about networking. It's about putting yourself into situations, events to meet someone you normally would never meet because
That's
you
it.
never know where possibilities will show up. And so I kept being drawn to the Woodland Hills Chamber, which was a very business centric chamber. And there was a gentleman there, Michael Miller, who was very instrumental in my career. He would observe me as I would meet someone new, and I would get so excited. I'd be like, Raul, tell me all about you. What do you do? And what do you think I should do? I just came in from, Minnesota. Michael Miller, one time after a meeting, took me to coffee and he said, Carol Ann, why don't you run for the CEO of the Woodland Hills Chamber of Commerce? And I said, I've never ran a chamber in my life, let alone one in Los Angeles. And he said, no, you're different. You've got a good energy and you're so good with people. So I thought, well, I love community service. I always have been volunteering my whole life on initiatives. I love connecting people. It was hitting all the things that I liked. And I thought, well, all you can do is try. And so I put my resume together to speak to it, indicating I had built 2 international companies in the Midwest. I had success with it and recruited a lot of people for it. And what they were looking for was really someone to bring new energy in. So, long story short, there were 60 people that applied, and I made it to the top 12. I made it to the top 5. And I was even told I was the underdog. They're like, you never ran a chamber. And I'm like, I know, but I'm here. And so I go into the board, and these 12 business people, and they were from Encino Tarzana Hospital, the Marriott Corporation, MGM Studios. Like this was a big group. And you know what, Raul? I just knew business. And I went in with a Crane folder with 5 Word documents, and I handed each one and I said, I'm going to treat this like a board meeting because if this was my company, here's how I would run it. And why I share that is I had the confidence and the ability in my own skill set that I knew how I would recruit people to build this chamber because it had become stagnant. So, long story short, I ended up getting selected for the CEO position and started the day before September 11th. And
Wow.
Wow is right. Around the world, we all heard that. We all were a part of that conversation. It touched everyone. What I knew in my heart was I needed to get the fear out of people and I knew how to connect people. And so I right away started creating initiatives to bring people together and how to promote one another, not be competitive, but in our community. So one of the initiatives was, so let's say there were three florists and we would have on a Thursday night, I would bring them all together and I'd say, what's your favorite design? And someone might say, I love doing weddings. I love doing bar mitzvahs. I love doing baby showers. That was like their passion. And I said, okay, bring a design with that vertical. And I said, then have like an open house the following Saturday. And do something special for people. Well, long story short, we did it for physical fitness people. We did it for health and finance people. We did it for bakers, bakeries. We did it for every
Mm.
kind of business vertical you can think of. And we ran them consecutively. And then I worked with the Valley Economic Development Center to bring in an entrepreneur class to our boardroom every week. In other words, I had all these beautiful events that would bring people together, that would help build their business. And I recruited new people to the board, and lots of volunteers. And that year, collectively, we brought in about 243 people to the chamber, which was unheard of in
Yeah,
any.
phenomenal.
And I end up receiving, there's an award behind me that I just cherish that was given to me by the mayor of Los Angeles for building community. And I also went on to receive an additional 11 congressional awards from senators and congressmen because I built this new community, right? Like I took, so our chamber, everyone wanted to be a part of after that. And so why I share that, if anyone's listening, is it was just about possibility thinking. How do you look at a situation through a new lens? How can I serve? How can I be a connector? And that was always what drove me. And because of that, that's where that I believe when your intention connects with your belief, that you will attract the best possibilities. And so I've had that philosophy my whole life. And then when we came up here, or we moved up from LA because of we had career opportunity. And this is how in the book and stuff will come into play. Um,
Mm.
we came up, there was a gentleman named oh my gosh, that's terrible. What Color is Your Parachute by Dick Bowles. And he wrote it like 60 years ago. He was the career guru in the field of career coaching. A friend of mine was at a dinner here in the Bay Area, sat next to him, heard that they needed a chief marketing officer and a membership director. And she leans over and she goes, I have the perfect couple. And it was my husband and I. And again, like I said, things have always showed up for me when I was ready. We had set the intention, we wanted to move to San Francisco. It just resonated with my soul. I love everything about the Bay up here. It's just a magical place. And so we came up and interviewed with Dick Bowles and his whole team. And they said, how soon can you get up here? We want to hire both of you. And we knew it was a year contract. So we came up on that. And then it was the most phenomenal year. Again, I worked with the number one guy in the world and I learned, the coaching right from him. We took the master coaching class and how to really have empathy for people at such a deep level when they're going through a career transition. I already
Mm.
had concern and care and I listened, but there was a whole nother layer that we learned and it felt aligned with how I do my work. So basically, my goodness, it was the best year. It was just, I got to travel with him and his wife. And I just felt so grateful. And then my husband wanted to have a coffee house in Sausalito. And so we put our life investment into that. We were going to build them up the coast. I did a stint with the Sausalito Chamber as their CEO on contract to help build it. And then 2008 hit. And this is when, as we all know, the Great Recession, and
Mm.
many people were affected by it. And our son was only 7 at the time. Literally overnight, Raul, we lost everything. We lost our home and our cars. It was it was an interesting time from the standpoint that it really showed you how not to be attached to stuff. And luckily, I was kind of already out ahead of it because I've never been one, to be about materialistic things. Now, I do like comfortable, but why I say that is that was the tipping point in how the book came about and how my own firm came about. Because I literally, when everything, you get a clean slate, and a lot of people are going through this right now. I know
That's
they
it.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're seeing it with AI and the tipping point. People are experiencing this now. So I often say maybe the universe had me go through all that so I could be of service to people, which I have and continue to be. But I literally sat down and wrote the course called A Mindful Career Mastery, Unlocking the Code, Mind, Body, Soul. And we're going to be launching that in June. Our book is a part of the program. Really, what it comes down to is when we can center ourselves through adversity, and take that moment to pause and not take it personal and know it's not about you. It's what happened. It happened to hundreds of people just right in my backyard. And
Mm.
a lot of couples divorced and lost their big, huge houses. And, it was interesting, but I knew in my heart that I could get back into search, which I love. And I literally wrote a program that I got so clear on my values. I got clear on the vision where I wanted to be. And I then wrote my resume to match my skill set, of course. And then I updated my LinkedIn profile and literally sent out my resume to a half a dozen search firms. And within a week, I had 3 interviews. And with 2.5 weeks, I was hired by one of them. So I do believe there's a magic to that energy, right? When you show up with pure intention. I wasn't looking just for a job to stop the bleeding, you know, and put food on the table. I knew I needed to step back into a career. And that for me was doing what I loved, which was search. And so I worked for a really wonderful company for several years. Then, yeah, 11 years ago, I I had an opportunity to start my own firm, and I had people show up to support me and help do the website and do the things I needed to have done. And then a couple years into it, now here comes the book. My husband, literally, who's next door in his office as a writer, he would say, "Honey, you need to write a book." And I go, like, when do I have time? And we'd joke about it. And so if anyone out there is thinking of writing a book, and I know with AI, you can get through it a lot quicker than what we did, but he put together a binder and gave me 12 topics to think about. And it really was wonderful for me because I would have these downloads at like 3 in the morning, bro. And I'd get up and I'd go, I got to write about that. So then I would just longhand it and it just flowed. It
Wow.
was information of really 30 years of work. But it was what I lived, having placed over 1,000 people in 35 years. So no, none of it is spin. It's all hands on, lived
Lived
true.
experience.
Yeah, and with the candidates I feel honored to have met. And so we wrote the book 5 years ago, and we're actually in a editing phase right now to update it with more AI, and then we'll be releasing that in June. But
Mm.
I feel so fortunate. I love what I do, and it's my husband and I, and we do critical hires for retained clients. So we're not staffing, but clients that, have tried for a long time and can't find those people, they'll call us up. And so we're really known in the Bay Area as that select boutique firm,
Mm.
right? That can find the people. And so, yeah, I'm grateful every day. I love what I do.
Thank you. There was one topic in there that I'd love to unpack with you, and that was you said, putting yourself out there and then sort of the universe or the world sort of comes to you. And my take on that is essentially planting a seed of intention And as you said, it's a true intention or a pure intention. And then if you nurture that seed, i.e. showing up or putting yourself in uncomfortable situations or even comfortable situations, but mainly just showing up both for you and the world, suddenly that manifestation piece starts to swirl and you end up somewhere where you go, oh, I didn't expect this to happen, but isn't this nice?
And it's even better. Most every good thing that has happened for my husband and I since that recession is so much better than I could have even dreamed.
Mm,
Like I had set goals that I wanted 5 clients that aligned with my values. And what I mean by that is I didn't want a client that just wanted me to fill a spot. I wanted to build a team. I wanted to be able to meet you, Mr. Client, and say, tell me what's your wish list? Tell me the ideal person, and let me see if I can align that personality and energy. Because I think at the end of the day, if you can find that exceptional person that they might have 85% of the skill set, but maybe they just have a passion for building things, right? You don't learn that in a book. You learn that
no.
from on. And I work with commercial builders. That's why I reference that do TI, beautiful tenant improvement in offices. And when I get to see these, I'm just in awe. My father was a custom home builder, so I grew up in that space. And that's why I chose that vertical. But, Raul, today, especially with AI, I coach my candidates and even clients, get out ahead of it. Learn everything that could align with what you do today, how AI can complement what you do. Don't be afraid of it because it's
Yeah.
those of us that embrace it and have a edge with it. So in fact, I was talking to a friend the other day about this and they're in a lot of fear about AI. And I said, here's what I would do. I'd go to your manager and ask them, what would you recommend? What course would you recommend? Where do you see AI fitting into my position? Because I want to learn everything I can. And if you show that initiative, I can promise you clients will look at you differently and not
Totally.
have you on the chopping block as irrelevant or dispensable because you're willing to learn, you
Yeah.
know, of it.
Yeah. In my agency, we have a mentality of whenever we use or develop a system for a client, it's not a rip and replace. The word we use is augmentation. And in the context of a candidate or a worker, I think fear usually leads to a fight or flight response. But the correct, I think, not the correct, but a more empowered approach for them would be to actually step through that fear and go, how can this actually enrich or double down what I'm doing? How can it augment what I'm doing? It may lead to making their work life easier. It may empower them to achieve things that normally, might take a week or a month to do. There's quite a limitless possibility at the moment. And there is that idea of I sometimes blow my own mind week to week because you don't know what you don't know. And
Oh, yeah.
it's that journey of just working through it. Or a lot like what you said with your experience through your career was by being around people and learning and exploring that unlocked different opportunities, different levels, different ways of doing things, and very likely more empathy and confidence in you. And I think AI is exactly that, but probably at a much faster pace with the way it develops.
Love that. Yeah, you articulated that beautifully. And it's here. And so become a friend with it. Figure out what that is. And or if you're a young person wondering where I should go, where I'd have a career down the road, I highly recommend and I actually spoke at a high school a few years ago about this and I took a um, building course for Habitat for Humanity. It was a 12 week. So I was with junior and seniors, and there were 3 of us women. I said, hands on, your electricians, your plumbers, your sheetrockers, anything that's going to build. a beautiful home is in need. Now, AI can do schematics and they can, like AutoCAD did beautiful renderings, but it's still going to take a human to do that hands on work. And so when I've talked to some of my builder friends, they're like, absolutely, there's no way, a robot's going to come in and, build this
Totally.
house. And I read the other day on LinkedIn, they were talking about the blue collar worker, and my husband is actually writing an article right now called The New Collar Worker. And they were saying that their salaries are
I
going to
love
be
it.
just
Yeah.
like doctors because they're going to be in such demand, because a lot of the builders, especially, I know this coming out of the search I just did for a chief estimator, a lot of the people from 55 to 65 are aging out of the game. And so the young people need to come up. And so and even estimators, they need good estimators to walk the job site to, you know, get an idea of what's going to go into that space. And so I just say, look for the possibilities and you can find them.
Totally.
I'm compiling a list right now, which I'm up to over 100 different kind of positions that AI will not replace. And,
Mm.
and it's predominantly all hands on,
Yep.
between hospitality and healthcare. You still need the people for assisted living and things like that. So again, I think it's when you find your calling. And again, mine was connecting people years ago, and I'm still doing it. And I've gotten to do it in every kind of vertical. And I just feel so fortunate.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting as a concept that if you are doing something that you're passionate or you really love, the rewards of staying focused in there can often be, money, opportunity, uh, deep fulfillment, but it often starts with just doing what you love. And I think your story is a testament to that sort of universal concept that we hear even as early as, school, where parents, say, look, there are good opportunities out there, but if you find something that you really like, let's double down on that.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I've been a lifelong learner of personal development and personal transformation. And that is even how the course we're going to be doing, which is going to be a live Zoom program where I'll teach every week. I didn't want to have just a modular program stuck on a website where you go in and good luck, hope you figure it out. There's too many of those.
Yes.
When decided to do this, I said, I want to show up because these people are showing up. They're giving the gift of their time. I want to be there to answer real live questions in that moment and really be like a Sherpa, like a guide. My younger son always refers to me as that. He just finished a 14-day trek up in the Himalayan mountains up in Nepal. And he went up 18,000 feet. And before we lost contact at the last several thousand feet he went, one day I texted him because he had just walked in 2 days of solid rain. His body was aching. He was soaking wet. His feet, and he wrote a beautiful post on his Instagram about it and said how you either could choose to be really angry and frustrated that I'm in this situation, or he said, I knew in that moment I was going to make the best of it because there were 19 other guys from around the world. And we all decided to look for the good. And then at the end of the night, they talked about it. So I texted him one of my favorite sayings, which is, your attitude is your altitude. And it
Mm.
really how you perceive things. And again, I could do stand-up comedy on all the challenges we've had in life, but I choose to stay focused on the good. And I do mean even like we were out walking this morning with our dog, and every time we go, I always ask my husband, I go, okay, honey, 3 things you're grateful for. And he looks at me, and goes, oh boy. I go, okay, four. Now you have to do four. And so we were doing, and it was the sunshine, the fact that we could get out for a walk. We're very healthy. And I was looking at all the flowers because they're all in bloom right now. It's just beautiful in our neighborhood. And I thought how lucky we are. And so Jack it was really endearing. He just got back to Oregon the night before last, and he just texted us and, he just said, "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad, for your encouragement, your words," you know? And so I think we all have that mountain we're scaling every day. If I was to use a
Yeah.
metaphor, there is always something and there's going to be a challenge. And it really is how you react to it, how you
Yeah.
decide to pause, take a breath, and look at it through the lens of it's going to be okay, and even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Like I said, my career has been amazing. My personal life, until I met my husband right now, was very entertaining for many years. And I every day just go, thank you. It's been 28 fabulous years with my Eric. And yeah, I keep telling him he's got to give me another 20 so I can, or 22. And he goes, I'll be over 100. You think I can do that? And I go, yeah, I want a 50-year anniversary.
Let's
So
go.
you got to think big, right? So anyway.
What's your outlook for the next 5 or 10 years in this sort of space? What do you think are going to be some developments, opportunities for people, and what do you think are going to be some of the challenges?
The biggest challenge definitely is how people are going to navigate, the AI conversation. I think also we're in a time where I believe, and it's called the shift, if you've heard that term, which
Yeah,
is waking people up. And what I mean by that, and I see it around my area, and I have this conversation with friends probably monthly, people got comfortable, right? And they kind of got locked into a way, especially if you're between like 35 and 55. And maybe you've been going along and you're in a career you really don't like, but it will pay the bills, or you want that new car, or whatever that story is. And I think what's happening right now, as I observe it, from the high level and from a spiritual level, a soul level, if you will, is that it's okay to step back and reevaluate where you're at. So I think that's one of the challenges right now, especially if people have been spending years to get that house and to build that dream. And I think it's okay to give yourself permission and to sit down. And that happened with my husband and I when that 2008 happened. I told him, I said, honey, I don't need a big house. I just need
mm,
you, my son Jack, and our dog. And I want something comfortable and sweet. And it's what we have now, a 1,400 square foot sweet cottage, little house, because I want to be out hiking. I want to be out in nature as much as possible. So I didn't want to be tied down to a big house. And right now we both are so grateful we made that conscious decision, right? So I
mm.
would say to people right now that might be reevaluating or looking at where they're at, to be okay with it and say, well, yeah, maybe it is time to really look at what is tying you down, what's stressing you out, and then a lot of times I have found it's our own perception of whatever that is, right? So I would say that's one of the biggest challenges I see. And then the AI piece, I think it's going to run its course in that, yes, it's going to help in a lot of ways. But I also believe, and we're a part of a tremendous group here called Partnerships for Change. It's a global organization. My girlfriend, Jackie Miller, started it. She has been blessed to work with the Dalai Lama for over 30 years, and a couple of his monks in the Oracle visit. And I've had just the honor to sit with them and learn from them. And we both feel when we're all talking that AI is going to shake itself out where it's served, right? And it may not, I don't see it taking our jobs, Raul. I think it will take the jobs of maybe less experienced recruiters if all they're doing is sourcing and slamming in resumes. Because
Yeah, just looking at CVs, auto
yes,
replies to candidates,
yeah,
no X factor, no secret sauce.
yeah, no personal touch, no human to be able to get into what's important to you and know you. And I don't know about you, but my clients will literally say, Carol Ann, if you can find someone that lives a half hour from me and then 45 minutes max because traffic, and then they can find a parking spot, be in the door within an hour. And that's
Yeah.
doable in San Francisco, right? AI can't do that.
No.
And when you talk to a human, are they willing to do that? Are they willing? So the granular stuff we do. But and then projecting out 5 years, I think people should really take their health as an important factor. While we're going through all of this, the mental well-being of people is being challenged on every level. And so I personally think you've got to take time for yourself in the morning, even if it's 5 minutes, and get a journal and write a thought down like, this is going to be the best day ever. And that best day ever could be simply playing with your kids or walking your dog or giving your wife a hug or your husband a hug. It doesn't have to be grandiose. But again, it's about getting that energy moving, right? Because
Mm.
I think the next 5 years we are in a time in our life I know that I never thought I would see. Not to the level. Like now I feel like those sci-fi movies are coming to life.
You might have a robot at your house in 5 years.
That or an alien. My husband always teases me because I do believe in cosmic energy. I think, why not? I mean, we have AI, and I actually have a friend that says the cosmic intelligence are communicating with AI, artificial intelligence, and that is why it's becoming so rapid. But the cosmic intelligence are good energy. Like they don't want to hurt the world. They really want to see us be kind to one another and bring compassion back. Because boy, right now the world is in kind of a crazy place. So you know
Mm.
what? I choose to look at all the good. We are all so blessed, and I think um, and I've been there, so I can speak from when it was tough. But I always knew in my heart it's going to be okay. And that would probably be the hope I hope people can take away from this, podcast when they hear it, that change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. And that's one of my favorite quotes by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I have it here on my wall. I look at it every day, and I know that it's up to me how I perceive all of this and how much I take in. And I do detox on the weekends. Unless it's my sons, I don't answer the phone. I don't look at it. I want to
Mm.
bake. I want to get out with the dog. I want to garden. I want to, do the things that bring me joy and refuel me. And so that would be the other thing I'd tell people, to get out more and connect with nature.
Thank you. We'll wrap this up here. So, thanks for listening, everyone. At the bottom of this episode, you'll find links to connect with me and Carol Ann, and a link to her course upcoming in June. And thanks to the companies behind me that are allowing me to produce these episodes. They are Golden Acre AI, our Pacific office, and Pacific Legal Solutions. Thanks, Carol Ann. It was a really lovely having you as guest number one on the show. And thanks so much for your deep, heartfelt insights.
Thank you very much for having me. And I wish everyone an abundant rest of 2026. Thank you.